I'm sure most of you have heard the term to think outside of the box. Many of you know that this is a metaphor for thinking in an unconventional manner, to think creatively. And this is what education used to be. Education used to allow children to think outside of the box. Today, however, our main focus is on standardized testing, and I think these tests are putting our kids back inside of the box. Is thinking inside of the box what we want for our children? Is thinking inside of the box what expands their knowledge? Is sitting down to take a test helping our children improve their academics? I don't think so. The big question is whether or not standardized tests are improving academics. My question is, how can it? A standardized test is an exam that is administered and scored in a predetermined standard manner. There are two kinds of standardized tests: aptitude tests and achievement tests. Standard aptitude tests predict how well students are likely to perform in some subsequent educational setting. But standardized tests, the big thing that's happening in education, measure specific knowledge and skills in particular content areas such as science, math, English, and social studies, and are what schools rely on when they evaluate schools' effectiveness. These tests are evaluating our schools on information that is too little to show students' strengths and weaknesses. So teachers are now teaching to the test. These standardized tests are supposed to be used as assessment tools that allow someone to make an inference about the knowledge and/or skills students possess in a particular content area. Standardized tests can be compared to a national sample of students of the same age or grade level. However, the amount of content tested does not compare to the amount of knowledge and/or skills the children have at any grade level and are likely to know. On top of that, each state teaches a different curriculum, so it's not fair to compare these students nationally. Critics of standardized testing point out that test anxiety affects the student's performance, resulting in scores that do not adequately reflect his or her knowledge. Critics also contend that standardized tests are only a measure of students' performance and must be considered along other assessment tools, including classwork and student portfolios, as well as teacher evaluations. These kind of tests are poor yardsticks of student learning. They are weak measures of the ability to comprehend complex material, write, apply math, understand scientific methods or reasoning, or grasp social science concepts. Nor do they adequately measure thinking skills or assesses what people can do in real-world tasks. There are many skills and attributes tests do not measure. Standardized tests do not measure a child's motivation to understand new material and perform well in school. They also do not measure a child's creativity or curiosity, nor the ability to cooperate in a group, challenge assumptions, or create in-depth projects. None of these characteristics are tested, yet they are essential skills for further education, workplace preparation, and life in general. It is important to remember that performance on standardized tests is not a complete indication of the full range of a child's academic abilities. So how can these tests be improving academic performance when that's not even what they're grading? Research has shown our understanding of the brain and how people learn and think has progressed enormously. Standardized tests, however, have remained the same. Test makers still assume that knowledge can be broken into separate bits and people learn by absorbing these individual parts. Today, cognitive and developmental psychologists understand that knowledge is not separable bits and that people learn by connecting what they already know with what they are trying to learn. If they cannot actively make meaning out of what they are doing, they do not learn or remember. The clips you just saw poke fun at teaching today, but also so truth. Teachers are no longer doing good teaching, but instead teaching to test. Instead of helping students expand their knowledge, they are trying to get them to memorize information. This information will not be retained if it is not learned. Therefore, no learning is actually occurring in the classroom. High-stake testing often result in a narrow focus on teaching just the tested materials. Other content in that subject, as well as untested subjects such as social studies, art, and music, are cut back or eliminated. High-stake testing also produces score inflation. Scores go up, but students have not learned more. Their scores are lower even on different standardized tests. This undermines the meaning of test results as well as education. One study by the University of Maryland found that pressure to teach the test was leading to declines in higher order thinking, and the amount of time spent on a complex assignment and the actual amount of cognitive content in the curriculum. Testing is supposed to be about showing what you learned over the course of a class, term, semester, or year. When teachers aren't able to teach, students are not able to learn. A national study in 2007 by the Center on Educational Policy reported that since 2001, 44% of school districts have reduced the time spent on science, social studies, and arts by an average of 145 minutes per week in order to focus on reading and math. A 2007 survey of 1,250 civics, government, and social studies teachers showed that 75% of those teaching current events left often cited standardized tests as the reason. From working in a classroom, I have experienced firsthand that teachers really are teaching to the test. When a student asks why they are learning something, the teacher usually responds with, "It's on your standardized test." Students do not get to fully understand content they are learning before being shuffled on to the next section of their materials because it's on their standardized test. That's not fair. Our children are just being passed through whether they know the information or not. Although teachers are teaching to the test, they are still teaching to students' individual learning style. But this doesn't come in handy when it comes to a standardized test. These tests are exactly what's in their name, standard. They do not meet the needs of all children, and each child is different when it comes to learning and test taking. Just how learning is not the same for all, taking tests is not the same either. Some children are really good at tests, and others struggle. Many have test anxiety. Test anxiety can hinder student performance on tests. Students could also have difficulties reading tests and may need the test read to them to fully understand. However, this cannot be done on a standardized test. Test anxiety can cause children to act out, or other students may not take the test seriously or fall asleep or Christmas tree it, so we're not actually receiving accurate results from standardized testing.
You can begin. I don't want to do that! I don't want to do that! I hate it hard! Wait, bend down! Please. Please stop bending down.
I'm doing.
Underwear.
Thanks. For additional resources, I asked the teacher what she thought about standardized testing. I asked her if she thought standardized testing was improving academic performance. She said, "I think that assessments do not help a child's academic achievement because students need support to succeed. If they do not have support, they will not make achievements. Those tests mean nothing to a student's learning. I had students who perform better with my support and then fail on state tests because of the stress, nerves, and pressures to do well." So to answer the question whether or not standardized testing are improving academic performance, The answer is no. If anything, standardized testing is taking away from students in their learning. Thank you.